Hey folks, welcome into the BN Cubs Podcast. Here to talk Cubs. I'm Brett Taylor. That's Michael Cerami. As always, we are presented by our friends at Ankin Law, 312-6 million, injury law made personal. Thank you, presenting sponsor, Howard and Friends. So Michael, we are coming into this one. You know, it's probably not true to say that it's been a while since we were led into a podcast with the Cubs in something of a slump, but it feels like it's been a few weeks. And I actually know some of the numbers. So Cubs have lost 4 of their last 6, which in any season for any team of any quality, that happens. That's just a statistical reality, right? For these Cubs so far this year, and it's June 12th, that's only happened 3 times this year that they've lost 4 of 6. The first one was the very first 6 games of the season. Almost feel like that shouldn't count because it has the 2 in Japan. And then more recently, but still a good minute ago, they lost 4 of 6 in the Giants series, the one with the implosive Ryan Presley outing. And that was followed by a trip to New York to face the Mets, where they lost 2 of 3. So it didn't have a particularly bad feel associated.
That was the last time they lost back-to-back series too, was those 2 series, which was the beginning of May.
I guess the math of that checks out, right? If you've lost 4 of 6, that's kind of a definitional thing. Good. I guess it doesn't have to play out that way because you could.
No, yeah, you could do like the last of one series.
You could lose the final game of a series and then get swept, and then
But still, I mean, that's the way I had visualized it is because the Cubs had won 7 series in a row, then lost the series to the Tigers, lost the series to the Phillies. But like the thing that stands out about both, I hate almost what I was about to say. They were pretty close to winning both series, right? They had a chance to beat the Phillies. They lost in extras, then they won the second game. So that was a good one. That was like a coin flip. And then the Tigers series, remind me what happened in the first game there. They lost 1-3.
Scooble. I mean,
Scooble, right. And
Ben Brown was great. Matched him.
That's what it was. Matched him.
That one, if you really want to make it a close call, Seiya was about 6 inches away from hitting a 3-run homer late to give the Cubs the lead. So you're not wrong about any of that, of course, but my hesitation is always there are coin flip games that go in the other direction that we could just as easily say, perhaps less so on this trip, but where it's like, well, Cubs could have lost that one and they didn't. So all in all, that's true. I honestly think that the 4 and 5. So let's get back to the trip for a second as a whole, because that national series was not easy. The people have a frame of reference for the Nationals as being this really crappy, young, underdeveloped team. It's not really accurate, both in terms of their record, their individual performance, and when you face them and you sort of look at their pitching staff and their lineup, it's like, oh, this is a team right on the verge. They're like next year's Tigers. Ooh, write that down. That's a little prediction. But I think that them at the front end of this trip, and then obviously the Tigers and then the Phillies, that's 3 very good teams, all in their house, with the Cubs not particularly missing any of the tough pitching matchups in those series either. So, 4 and 5 on a trip like that is not bad. I would never regard that as bad. It's just fair, I think, to say we can't look at that trip and say, yeah, the Cubs had a great road trip. If they'd gone, which feels like picking nits, because if they'd flipped one of those games and it's 5-4, you're like, man, that's a good road trip. Winning road trip against those 3 teams. So I don't know. I don't know if it's worth putting too much into how we evaluate that road trip in terms of like what it means for the Cubs' true talent or ability, particularly when, so let's see, in a single road trip, they faced Mackenzie Gore, Tarek Skubal, Zach Wheeler,
Jack Flaherty,
and even Jesus Luzardo, who Michael told how to fix his pitching issue. Michael clearly, if folks read it, figured out that Luzardo was tipping pitches. And although did I say that to you on a phone call?
Yeah, that was you. Well, I was like, did you see what happened? Because he had 11 incredible starts, including one against the Cubs. And I was like about to write, boy, the Cubs should have traded for Luzardo in like one of the previews. It's like, rhetorically, jokingly. But then I looked and his ERA was like 4.3. And I was like, what? It's because he had allowed 20 earned runs in like 5 innings over his last 2 starts, which is just, I mean, that's one of those things too, that it reminds me of like relievers too, where you're like,
oh, sure.
You way rather have a guy who goes 10 starts elite and 2 starts horrific, but that the ERA number completely is meaningless in that sense. But yeah, Luzardo absolutely counts. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball until he had a 2-start.
He looked pretty good yesterday.
Mix up. Yeah, he looked excellent.
Yeah.
And the Cubs should have
those are
him, turns out.
Those are the 5 losses, by the way. Those 5 games against those 5 starters were the 5 losses. And listen, I know I can hear people through my headphones and microphone and through the space and distance of when they are listening to this that, well, you're going to face good pitchers in the playoffs. You got to beat. Well, two easy responses to that. One, you don't always have to beat up on the really good pitcher in order to win a playoff game. Okay, that's not how it isn't like, well, you've got to be able to destroy the best pitchers in baseball, otherwise you can't win in the postseason. That's not how. Have you watched a playoff series? That's not how those games play out. Okay, you try to
don't get mad against this imaginal. I'm pissed at this. Have you watched
this person who doesn't exist?
Who are you getting mad at?
And then I was just going to say, and then the addendum to that too is that the Cubs actually did come close to winning those games, some of them, and so again, it circles back to the same point. It's not a road trip that you can be excited about. But I don't know that it's a road trip that you can feel concerned by or have it change your perspective on this Cubs team.
Well, and, I also don't want to lose sight of those aren't. If you watch a lot of baseball, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know that those guys, Flaherty aside, are really excellent pitchers, but like they are really, really excellent. I mean, Skubal is probably the best pitcher right now, and Wheeler. It's so hard because in my head I go, yeah, of course Zach Wheeler is really good. You go back and look over the last 5 years, he's the WAR leader of pitchers in baseball, which is like, I know not the perfect, illustration of his dominance, but it's like, I mean, did you know that? Like, and it's by like 4 wins. Like, it's like a huge, huge difference. Most of that is because he's super durable and he throws a lot of innings, and that matters.
7 innings every start. And
but like that is also part of his value, right? And again, Skubal is as good as it gets right now. So yeah, and also the Tigers rearranged their rotation to have Skubal face the Cubs instead of the White Sox, and it's like, I don't know. It makes sense to me. It's disappointing. I think though that, like you said, I see a lot of people. It was on the radio on 670 The Score. They're like, we got to shake up the lineup to get these guys going. It's like, I don't know. I think it's just an unusual draw of pitchers, and I'm guessing they're going to get Skeens this weekend, right?
On Friday.
Friday.
Skeens Horton for a Friday 120. So
well, that's actually pretty sweet.
It's good baseball.
I would like to watch that. Yeah. I mean, Skeens though, you throw that in there. Those are the top starters, right? Like,
did you see there was a chart that went around that had like the 5 Cy Young contenders, the top 5 for each. And the Cubs were facing 4 of the 10 names in 1 week. Within a 1 week span, they were facing 4 of the top 10 pitchers in base. So again, I think we're landing.
And doing it without Miguel Amaya. I mean, for what it's worth, I'm not saying he's like a difference maker, but it's losing a significant guy and doing so without Shota Imanaga or Justin Steele of their own to counter, and doing so without Porter Hodge. Like the Cubs do have some key injuries right now on top of all of this, and it was all on the road, like you said. So
and let me add
the one counters. The Phillies were in a little bit of a rut. Kind of sucks that we couldn't continue their rut, but what are you going to do? They're a good team still.
They needed home cooking. So, last point I would make is that to the idea that the Cubs are in an offensive slump. I think everyone can get on board with the idea that it depends on what pitching you're facing. Okay. And if you're facing a whole lot of good pitching, your offense is going to look more stifled than usual. fine. We saw that early in the season. If folks remember, there was a stretch where the Cubs were facing like all the best pitchers going at that time. The other thing to keep in mind is through May-ish, there were still a number of Cubs offensive performers whose results probably were outpacing the numbers they were going to put up. Like some of what natural regression is the bounces don't fall and the universe turns and these things happen. But some of it's you just have to face more good pitching, and that sort of brings your numbers back to where they were going to be. So this is, in a lot of ways, the last 2 weeks have been a reflection of nothing more than expected baseball, regardless of your feelings about the true talent of the Cubs offense, which I think is still quite good. And I would expect them, Skeens notwithstanding, to have a good weekend series against the Pirates.
Well, can I talk about the offense for one more second, though? Because there is something that's been rattling around my brain, and I don't even know how this point is going to get out, if it's going to be a question or like a statement. So just bear with me. But
we got a dump button. It's fine.
Yeah. Do you feel when there's a lefty on the mound versus a righty on the mound, do you have any? I'm just going to tee it up to you first, and then I'll think about it. Do you have any feelings? Let me rephrase that. In years past, I'd be like, oh, great, they're facing a lefty. I know our lineup's really good against lefties. Or, oh, great, they're facing a righty. I know the lineup's really good against righties. There are a lot of things going in and into this, but do you have a particular preference about which type of pitcher the Cubs are facing? Talent equal, because there's good and bad pitchers on both sides, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, so the Cubs don't have a lot of regular right-handed hitters with huge splits against lefties, like where they just
it's like say
yeah. So they typically there are a lot of split neutral righties in their regular starting group. So the thing I think about when the Cubs are facing a righty is I'm like, okay, well, at least Michael Busch gets the hit, and it's like the lineup suddenly. Well, you're right, and because he has struggled a bit against particularly tougher lefties. Although I feel like that had improved until he's, the last couple of weeks. Yeah. I could be wrong, but no, that's a good point. But with Busch, you don't even get him in the lineup when the Cubs are facing a lefty. And he's like a 160 weighted runs created plus hitter. And so that's like taking one of your best three hitters out of the lineup just because they're facing lefty. So,
okay, wait, but pause right there. But so when I think about that, though, it sucks losing Busch, and I'm not even getting into the Justin Turner. Like, that's not the point of what I'm driving towards. Instead, I go, it sucks losing Busch. It sucks losing that half of PCA. But Nico Horner is way better against lefties this year. Seiya Suzuki is crushing lefties, and Kyle Tucker is also better against lefties. And Ian Happ, as a righty facing lefty, is better against lefties this year than righties.
He's having a great year against lefties.
Yeah. So a part of me goes, oh, that sucks. And then part of me goes, well, actually, this lineup does have a way to face them too. It feels like you lose Busch and PCA.
I'd feel a lot better if Craig Counsell would put Michael Busch back into the games when the lefty starter leaves the game.
Well,
it's like
he does that for Turner. I don't understand why he doesn't do it for Busch. When Busch starts, a lefty comes in, Turner starts.
They switch.
But
there is an explanation, and the explanation is if Turner is an important part of your bench, and if he's your top bat in your bench, the ability within a given game when he's already going to face righties and just stay a little sharp against righties will bear fruit over the whole season because it'll keep him more locked in overall. That's the argument. Does that outweigh not having obviously for me it does not. Does that outweigh not having your best often bat against righties sitting on the bench? And by the way, he's a better defender at first base.
Yeah,
sitting
that's
on the bench
the thing too.
Late
and a better
games,
runner, everything.
When it's the most important part of the game. Like,
yeah,
I get it.
No,
I'm not
actually
saying,
I take it. I take
argument, but
it's not a good argument. I like take it. I appreciate it. I didn't think about that. It's giving me something else to think of, and also go win the game today.
It.
What are you talking about? And you're right. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that Michael Busch is like a 150 weighted runs created plus guy for the season. And again, I know he's protected against lefties, but he still has over 200 plate appearances and stuff. And we're like, it's like, oh yeah, take him out of the lineup or like whatever. He's one of the most critical pieces. And sometimes he bats like 7th or 6th, just because of how the lineup falls. But it's crazy that like he can fall that low. But it's when you have Happ, Tucker, Suzuki, PCA, and then you want to break up PCA and Bush with a lefty or with a righty, Swanson or Horner. Really, it does always bring me back to the Cubs are one righty bat short this year, one like impact righty bat. And, you know, maybe eventually that becomes Matt Shaw and you can move him up and whatever. But it does feel like if they had one more righty bat so that Swanson didn't have to hit between PCA and Bush, but a significant player could, then it's the unstoppable offense, which they're already very good. So maybe that's, you know, wishing for a lot, but it's not like, I mean, Bregman is out still, right?
Well, I was just going to say, it's not like there was a guy like that available this offseason. No,
but he got hurt.
Significant. Yeah, he's been out he's out for multiple months. So
Bregman out, and
that's butterfly.
What's his name? Dodgers reliever, Tanner Scott.
Oh,
not
Tanner
like
Scott.
Having the year that, although maybe the Dodgers are just, what are they doing over there? Why is everyone getting hurt? And
they always get, because I see these lists that are like the Dodgers have the most injured players. The Dodgers have the most days spent on the IL. And it's like, yeah, some of that's like injury stuff that happens, right? But a lot of it's the pitchers that they choose because they can afford financially to take the risk on these deals that for guys that we know are going to get injured. And then it's also they push their young pitchers in a way to develop in a way, not to cast aspersions, but we've seen this is going on a decade now. They develop their pitchers in a way that pretty much locks in an early career arm injury.
This is hilarious. I had a text. I have a Cubs group text, and one of my friends texted me, "Are you a believer in the Dodgers driveline guy is killing their pitchers theory?" I said, I think these things, this is a direct quote, are 33% luck, 33% the way you train and develop your pitchers, and 33% the type of pitchers you're targeting and able to sign in the first place. You started saying that. I was like, did you read my text messages? That's hilarious. Yeah, that's 100%. I mean, they are going after certain guys and certain, you know, and then, but I do think it's part of the way they do it, right? It's part of the way they develop and train and is part of it. And then again, they probably are having some bad luck as well.
Yeah, it can be all three things. Well, let's use that to segue a bit since we're talking about pitching and luck and injuries and whatnot. I think we have to talk about Ben Brown in relation to the entire rotation because it was such a since we last recorded. What an extreme, like
the two versions of it,
the two polars that we got of him, right? So on Friday, Brown, he had his changeup working. He threw it more than he's thrown it all year. It got some ugly swing and misses from lefties on the Tigers. And of course, the goal of having that third pitch isn't just to execute that third pitch, but it's to improve the reliability and usability of your fastball and your curveball because hitters can't just sit on one or the other. And he was fantastic. That was probably the best he's looked since that 7-inning no-hit appearance against the Brewers last year before his neck issue popped up. And then the Phillies. Second time he's faced the Phillies this year, and it's the second time they have done the exact same thing to him, which is they got him early, hit him a lot, and didn't let up. Tons of loud contact. BABIP was huge, but kind of justified by the caliber of contact that they were making. And then you look at his pitch execution, and what you see are two really noticeable things. One, the changeup, which he threw 8 times, was pretty much non-competitive. Like just none of them were executed in a way that's going to get you any kind of commitment from a hitter or fear that like, oh, I got to watch out for the changeup today. Just didn't have it. And then 2, the curveballs, which is a chase pitch typically. Sometimes he's getting it over for strikes, but when he was in the zone, it was middle, like every time. And then the rest were chase pitches, which he did get some chase, but a lot of those are just waste. They're not competitive. And then the fastball was above the zone, non-competitive, or middle. Like his chart. I'm going to be writing about this later today at the end, but I looked at his pitch chart because it felt this way during his outing, and I wanted to confirm. And it's like how you would draw up a pitch chart if you were like, this is what a bad command outing looks like. And the Phillies are too good to not take advantage of that, because you get the double whammy of you fall behind in counts, and you have a limited pitch selection, and you have pitches that are grooved. So it's like these guys are just drooling at the opportunity.
And Bryce Harper wasn't even in the lineup this week.
So it was concerning, but it was concerning in a way that it's like, since it's so easy to diagnose what went wrong, I'm not saying it's easy to fix, but since we know exactly, and this has been my story with him all year, we know exactly what the issue is. It at least makes me feel better about the possibility that when we see outings like the one against the Tigers, like the one against the Reds that was before that, where he looks so good and he is executing, and he's one of the best starters the Cubs have available when he's executing, it makes me feel a little better that, like, maybe give him a little more room. Maybe give him a little more of a chance. And this is,
he's lucky in that sense because of the opportunities provided by injuries.
I'm going to punt it to you with this point that he has been very fortunate that it's never been a question, really. Is he going to be in the rotation or not? Does he need a break? Not. But soon, combined with some sneaky underperformance from Colin Ray over the past few weeks, he's been bailed out by the offense and the bullpen quite frequently. We know Shota is coming back, and we know Cade Horton is the last guy in, but I don't know. We'll see how he looks, and he's going to get at least 2 more starts before Shota is back. We'll see how he looks, but I don't, if you're putting that to me today, which you're not, and I would punt on it just like the Cubs would punt on a firm decision right now too, because sometimes things happen. I think it's going to be a tough decision about what the Cubs are going to do, not the least of which because even if you were to say, well, just move Colin Ray into the bullpen, he's a swing, he was signed as a swing man. It's fine that, like, Ben Brown still has great starts in him. Cade Horton is ready, all that. Well, then you're pushing someone out of a bullpen that is going to get Porter Hodge back soon. Okay. Do you know how many guys in the bullpen right now have minor league options?
One. Yeah.
Daniel Palencia, the closer.
So
that means that when,
how did they end up with that? They had like nothing but guys with options to start, and not, well, it's because all the guys they added.
Right. It's because, and it's, you absolutely credit the front office and the coaching staff and the pitchers themselves for making it that the Cubs had like no choice to keep bringing in and keeping these optionless relievers because they're pitching so well. Like when Chris Flexen came up, right, because the Cubs needed some innings, and he had an opt-out at Iowa. He's pitching well at Iowa. Like, I do not think the Cubs front office, if you'd gotten them, behind a closed door to admit, I don't think they would have said, oh man, he's going to lock in and be part of this bullpen for like 2 months, 0 ERA. And, they would have been like, well, we'll see what happens, right? Like, we needed it. We needed the innings. He had the opt-out. It just kind of lined up. But then he has made it so that it would be insane to dump him right now. Drew Pomeranz.
I know.
It would be insane to dump him right now. And I'm not saying that lasts forever, right? The 0 ERA thing for both of them, I'm not banking on that. But point is, and even Genesis Cabrera has looked really good with the Cubs. He gave up a homer yesterday, but he's actually looked really good. And the Cubs grabbed him when things were crowded, knowing he had no options remaining. So they must have liked him. Like, that's a guy they wanted. But, so it's going to be, the whole thing is going to be a complicated web.
I mean, for what it's worth, there's going to be injury or underperformance by the time that this matters.
They're almost certainly.
Almost certainly. Also, though, I want to get back to Brown and Ray, but really quickly, it's like, how are they so good at doing this during the season and a little less good during the off season when you're I'm not even making a joke. I'm being dead serious, because it's maybe this second or third year in a row where like they've picked up, no, it is the third year in a row. They've picked up guys who have just been excellent, and they're picking them off the scrap heap, but they're doing that in the offseason, and they're doing that with more money and more options, and somehow their hit rate is just way lower.
So in fairness, this year at least, Brazier was before the season. Keller was before the season. Flexen was before the season. To the flip side, like you said, obviously Tyson Miller last year was cast away. Drew Pomerantz this year. And it's
Pomerantz, the big one.
We'll see.
Cabrera.
And Pomerantz perhaps is a good example of why it could be that they are simply better in season. And it's because they had an opportunity to evaluate Pomerantz this year coming out of spring training. He's healthy. He's pitching competitively.
They didn't have to
AAA for Mariners. Yeah. And so they don't have to, they're not trying to project through an off season. They are like, okay, he rates this, and this. We know we can do this. Get him right now while he's feeling good.
Okay. But let me put it this way then. Do we need to start reframing the way we think about how the Cubs, specifically a Jed Hoyer Cubs front office, successfully builds a bullpen? And because we used to say like, oh yeah, they're figuring things out in April and May, or maybe it is they're going to start identifying and targeting relievers earlier in the season that become available for one reason or another. And that is also part of their bullpen construction MO. Like narratively, is that how they do it now? I don't know.
They say that? That's like risky as heck to even admit that's like, Craig Counsell, who's now sort of part of that group, right? Mm-hmm. And Tommy Hodvey's been here a while, and it's Jed Hoyer and it's Carter Hawkins. Now they always say, look, we're looking for pitching all year. It's a 12-month job, and we're going to add here and there. So it's like they do talk about this, and we know behaviorally they do this. But I think your question's a really good one, because I'm looking ahead to like next offseason.
Exactly.
Talk about decisions the Cubs make in the bullpen and say with a straight face, now keep in mind, the Cubs are going to add guys in April and May who are going to be awesome. We don't know who, we don't know how,
exactly,
but they're going to be great.
So let me just to bring it back to the rotation quickly, and then we could transition to the game. I know what you're saying. I follow all the things you're saying. Here's where I land. I'm going to keep it nice and short and simple. If he's healthy and pitching the way he has been, I'm not removing Cade Horton from the big league rotation, and I'm not even going to be concerned
even when
about
thinking
his
about innings. Okay, that's
I know.
The only caveat.
Just pitch, and then listen. If they need to shut him down because they said no matter what, you're not pitching more than 115 innings this year or whatever, different story.
Strasburg.
Like,
do you remember?
Maybe you need to do that, but yeah, I remember it was like that was like in July or August, right?
August. It was like August, and they were cruising, and they're like, "Sorry, this is it, and it's over." I don't know. I'd have a hard time seeing the Cubs.
I know, but even if they sent him to, if they get the most that they are going to be willing to do is send him back to Iowa and like only let him pitch 4 innings a game or something. They're not shutting him down for a month in the middle of the season if he's healthy. They're just not going to do that. So I'd like to keep Cade Horton in the rotation. That's just where I stand. Again, this is all like assuming things go the way that they are. Then I would say that although you're right that there has been some bad performances from Colin Ray lately, the 2 worst ones were both against the Reds. And when I see that, when you have 2 bad games against the same team and they're back to back, that's a little bit of noise. I don't know if that's not, and he bounced immediately after that. He had an opener, but he went 5.1 scoreless against the Nationals, who are not a bad team. And then he goes 4.1 with 4 runs against the Phillies in Philly. I don't know. I think Colin Ray is, in my opinion, the guy you keep in the rotation. And then again, assuming nothing changes, Ben Brown has the higher upside. There's no doubt about it, but he also has the higher upside as a potential reliever. He also has the ability to go to Iowa and work on whatever he's working on the changeup to come back as a starter. There's way more to gain by getting him out of the rotation, by either letting him continue to start and work on it at AAA or become an impact reliever the way that we are all kind of guessing he could be almost right away once he transitions, maybe over a period of a few weeks, just based on limited pitch mix and hopefully not the same effects of the first inning, I guess.
The first inning, which is the only inning.
But yeah. So I think in my mind, you keep Horton and Ray and Shota and Tyone and Boyd if it were to work out that way. And you just hope that Ray, who looks good to me, just had a couple bad games in a row against the same team. One of them at Great American, back to back. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know if he's actually in as big of a rut, or was it just, the occasion?
And that approach does make the bullpen decision easier.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of roster. But like you said, because this is where we're going to leave it, 2 weeks or so until Shota's back, assuming he progresses, stuff happens,
100%.
Including injuries make it easy, but also like maybe Ben Brown puts back-to-back 7-inning shutout dominant performances, and you're like, okay, never mind.
Yeah, but wait, I have to ask you though, are his good performances just the coin flip of people guessing wrong more often than not, and that's the only difference, and then it's always up to chance, and then it's not actually a skill thing? It's just, well, today they guessed poorly, today they guessed correctly, and then that's the case. I don't know if you could ever count on that.
Yeah, I get your point, and that's a good one. I have to look at his pitch charts, because I imagine sometimes he executes
was the Tigers start actually better?
Well, that one I can say for certain it was, because the changeup execution was like actually really good. Like it looked really
That's
good.
Fair. I think he still threw 9 of them yesterday though, right? Or
8 of 100. And then the Tigers
won 9 of 95,
10 of 90. So
okay, it was a little higher. Yeah.
And then when you're executing 10% of them, as opposed to like not executing 8% of them, big difference.
That is a huge difference. You're right. All right, we got to transition to the game. Otherwise, this is going to be the longest pod. Today's game, this week's game, is brought to you by Feldco. Feldco is the home renewal experts. Bleacher Nation is proud to partner with Feldco because Gonna start that over. Feldco, the home renewal experts. Bleacher Nation is proud to partner with Feldco. For almost 50 years, Feldco has been transforming Chicagoland homes with their windows, siding, doors, and roofing. Feldco is family-owned and prides themselves in delighting their customers. With products made in the U.S. and designed specifically for the Midwest, Feldco offers the perfect balance of beauty and energy efficiency. Man, it felt like I had marbles in my mouth. This week's game is going to be 2 truths and a lie. I have 3 of them, so each one will have 2 truths and a lie. You have to guess which one is the lie.
6 truths and 3 lies.
Yep. Yeah. That I had to do some math in my head. It's a little easier than I cared to admit. So the first one is about PCA. Okay. All 3 of these are PCA things. The what do I call it? The first fact or not? The first truth or not?
Yeah. The first
PCA is, well, let me read all 3 and then you could decide which one and we'll decide. Yeah. Okay. So number 1, PCA is the only player in the National League in the top 5 of WAR for all of Major League Baseball. No other NL player is in the top 5 besides PCA. Number 2, PCA has the most outs above average of any player in Major League Baseball. And number 3, PCA has the most home runs plus stolen bases in Major League Baseball.
Well, you picked good ones because I could see any of those being like just a little bit false. I'm pretty sure though, I don't think he leads baseball in outs above average because I think I feel like there was someone surprising, but it's been a minute since I checked, so it could have flipped. But I'm going to go with that one.
You are correct. He is tied for second with athletic shortstop Nick Allen. Bobby Witt Jr. leads the way at 13 outs above average.
It was Nick Allen, by the way, was who so I was right, but I was wrong because that's who I was thinking of. But
PCA is the only player in the top 5 of WAR at 3.6. PCA's 3rd overall. Ohtani and Carroll are both at 3.3, but they're 6th and 7th. So he's the only NL player in the top 5. And then he has the most home runs plus stolen bases in baseball. He has 38 combined. O'Neill Cruz is 37, Ohtani 34, Ellie De La Cruz 33, and Cal Raleigh 33. So that's pretty cool. Most home runs plus stolen bases in baseball on June 12th for our elite defensive center fielder. Yeah. Okay. The second set of truths and lies is about the pitching staff. Number 1, Ben Brown has the highest ERA of all qualified starting pitchers in baseball. Number 2, the Cubs bullpen has one of the top 10 fastball velocities in Major League Baseball. Number 3, Matthew Boyd has one of the top 15 ERAs in Major League Baseball.
Among qualified starters?
I had to, he's like an inning or so short, but he has a full season. You know what I mean? He wasn't in the qual. I had to make it like 65 minimum or whatever.
Yeah. Cause I know
it barely added anyone to the list. He's right at the borderline. Yeah. I don't know why he's not.
Yeah, I know that's roughly and I know that one because when I was looking at him after his last outing, I was surprised how many starting pitchers still had ERAs better than him. I was hoping it was a little higher because I was going to be like, man, did you guys know that Matthew Boyd is? So I'm actually going to go with the Ben Brown one in his defense, because it's like there's got to be some Rockies starter or White Sox starter or something who has a higher ERA and is qualified, but maybe they're not qualified. So lay it on me.
At 5.71, Ben Brown has the highest ERA of all qualified starting pitchers in Major League Baseball, 3 spots higher than Kyle Hendricks at 5.20.
Oh no.
Expand it to a minimum of 60 innings, and the worst ERA belongs to future Cub Sandy Alcantara, which is only
that's funny.
Said slightly in jest. The Cubs bullpen does have one of the top 10 fastball velocities in baseball, 95.2 miles per hour. They have the 8th highest, which how cool is that? We have had years and years and years and years of not the highest velocities. So I was really happy to see that. I think that's awesome. Matthew Boyd does not have one of the top 15 ERAs in baseball. He's got a 2.89 ERA, which ranks exactly 25th, a 100th of a point behind Mackenzie Gore. So pretty close, top 25, but not top 15. I agree. I thought I was going to make that the opposite when I went to look for it. I went, oh, he's got to be like the 12th or something, but it's actually only 25th at 2.89, which is kind of crazy. Okay, our last set of truths and lies is about Kyle Tucker. And it's going to be about his his season so far this year versus last year. So for reference, so you have a sense, I'm just going to let you know that he played 78 games with 340 plate appearances last year, 67 games, 302 plate appearances this year. So they're pretty close samples. So, it's a little bit less this year, but it's just about there. But it's not all about him to him. So there's 3 things here. So first, Kyle Tucker, these are 3 truths and a lie. Kyle Tucker has more multi-strikeout games than Michael Busch this year. Kyle Tucker's xWOBA this year is higher than his xWOBA last year. Kyle Tucker has one of the best 5 called strike plus whip percentages in Major League Baseball. Which one of those is not true?
Well, the xWOBA one I want to be true, so I'm not going to choose. In my head I'm going to say that one's true because I would like that one to be true. What was the Michael Busch one?
The Michael Busch one is Kyle Tucker has more multi-strikeout games than Michael Busch does this year.
I think no, that can't be true. If it is, that's a great fact. So I'm going to choose that one so that you can smile and be like, actually.
Do you want me to tell you how many one of the other guys has, and then you can decide if it's going to be more or less?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So Michael Busch, or do you want to know Kyle Tucker's or Michael Busch's?
Give me Kyle Tucker's.
Kyle Tucker has 9 multi-strikeout games this year. Does Michael Busch have more or fewer?
He plays fewer games, but so that's a conflating factor. But I just feel like, we know Busch strikes out at like a 27% clip or whatever, and it's fine. It works for his game. It's got to be Busch. Okay, so I'm gonna stick with that one. I'll choose that one.
That one is false. Busch has 11, but pretty close. Only 2 more multi-strikeout games than Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker's xWOBA this year 4.05. Last year 4.00. He has a better xWOBA this year than he did in one. Yeah, go on.
For folks who don't know, to color that. So xWOBA is a measurement of how you would expect a guy to be producing based on walks, strikeouts, and the quality of his contact. Like how good is the contact? Last year, Kyle Tucker was a monster. His results were monstrous. So for him to be performing sort of under the hood even better this year it suggests to me he probably got a little lucky last year maybe. But it means he's he's been really good this year, which we already know.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think the point behind Michael's point is that you look at his performance this year, you compare it to last year, and it's like, he's not quite doing as well as last year. Well, maybe that's not true.
That's going to be the article later today. And I
nice.
mean, it's going to be exploring that because there's a lot that goes into it. And it's really interesting. A lot of his numbers are really, really interesting relative to his monster performance last year. I'm so excited to dive into that. And then the last one that I said, this is blowing my mind. Kyle Tucker's CSW percentage, called strike plus swinging strike percentage, is 20.7%. Second best in baseball behind only Luis Ariz, who's nowhere near the hitter Kyle Tucker is. Relatively
well, and who swings, he makes so much contact that he's not going to have called strikes or whiffs.
Exactly. And so to see that, it's like, oh, Kyle Tucker's like the best plate appearance.
Plate discipline.
That is an incredible. I could not believe it. And Ariz is only 20.3, 0.4 percentage points above Tucker. That is incredible. So I actually think we know Kyle Tucker's having a great season, and it's everyone is kind of like, oh, is he really worth 450 million, 500? It's not really that great. It's like, no, he actually might be incredible. And we need to consider what could be right around the corner because he's performing the same way that led to one of those absolutely elite, fundamentally elite, top of the tier stretches last season. He's doing the same stuff, if not better, this year. So that was 2 truths and a lie. And I thought you did pretty good there. I thought those are good ones too.
Good. Maybe you have a tell and I can just see it in your face.
Yeah.
This is the BN Cubs podcast. It's brought to you by Ankin Law, 312-6 million, injury law made personal. Howard Ankin and crew. They have brought this very long podcast to you. Sorry / you're welcome. If you like long pod, if you just want more of us in your lives, then you lucked out. I'm Brett Taylor. That's Michael Cerami. We write at Bleacher Nation. You can read our stuff there. You can rate, review, subscribe, watch on YouTube, all of that podcast stuff. And we appreciate you for it. Hope you have a good rest of your week and a good weekend.